Good afternoon. Thank you guys for your patience. We really appreciate that. So welcome to today's Wyoming Community Navigator Program webinar. We are so glad you've joined us for today's presentation of Building Business Credit Part 1, presented by Coach Starnes. My name is Mandy Bailey, the Advising and Education Director with Wyoming Small Business Development Center, and I will be your facilitator today, working behind the scenes through the chat and question function of GoToWebinar to assist you the best that I can with any technical difficulties or questions you might have. Currently, all microphones are in listen-only mode in order to minimize the background noise, but feel free to type your questions into the question function of GoToWebinar so they can be answered during our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And you may want to monitor the chat. We'll be posting helpful links and information. This webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent out to the participants about a day after its conclusion. The Wyoming Community Navigator program is funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration and utilizes the Wyoming Entrepreneurial Support Network to reduce barriers all businesses often face, especially those owned by groups such as veterans, women, and those from rural communities and communities of color. The Wyoming Community Navigator program uses a hub and spoke model to pursue its goals, and through their collective efforts provide training and access to other resources to help business owners build resiliency and ultimately be the driving force behind Wyoming's economic recovery. Today's webinar, Building Business Credit, is presented by Coach Starnes. She is the author and publisher of Navigating the Credit Repair Maze, Top 10 Credit Repair Tips, and Save $1,000 in 120 days. So now I'm going to turn it over to Coach Starnes.
Mandy, thank you so much for the invitation, and I truly appreciate all of you and your patience, and grateful to be here. I want to start off and just give you some background in terms of what I do, and then why I'm so passionate about business credit, and also just business entrepreneurs being able to build their business. During the pandemic, one of the things that I noticed is that there was a lot of funds that was eligible, or a lot of funds that was for small business owners. But the problem is that a lot of small business owners could not access the funds. And some of these funds, through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Payment Protection Program, some of these funds were actually, you could get them, there was free money, but we were not able to access them, a lot of small business owners, because they did not have the minimum things in place. Business bank accounts, did not have their EIN, employee ID number, and these things. And it saddened me because it could have really helped small business owners pivot during this period. And in my mind is, what can I do to help to ensure that small business owners have the basics of things in order? And once they have this foundation, if you think of a house and building a house, if you have your foundation in place, guess what? You can build upon that house in a solid structure so it can survive. It's not like a house built on sand. And as a result, I would want to put together something that can not only help you to build business credit, but it can ensure that you have your foundation in place and make you bankable, because the things that I'm going to share with you today not only will, again, help you with your business, but it's also going to help you if you decide to go to a bank and you want a lending institution and you're trying to access funds. So the webinar is actually split in half. This first piece, we're going to focus on the foundational things, getting your business house in order. And then the second phase of the webinar, which will be the following week, we're going to actually build, and I'm going to show you how to go about applying for business credit. So the steps that we take today, if you do all of these things, dot all the I's and dot all the T's, guess what? It will help you to ensure that you will be able to access business credit. And you can drop this in the comments. I have a question for you. How are you currently funding your business? Are you bootstrapping? Are you borrowing funds from friends or family members? Are you funding your businesses through 9 to 5? How are you currently building or getting accessing funds in your business. Can anyone drop in the chat how they're actually doing that? Or if you can come off mute. Business credit. We're going to jump in and get right into the meat. So these are some of the things that you will learn today. What is business credit? I'm also going to talk to you about the differences between personal and business credit. And I want to give you some foundational steps that are required to build business credit score. We will ultimately analyze a business credit report. I want you to see exactly what the lenders will see when they review your credit report and what they're looking at. We will talk about different variants, and I will introduce you or give you a blueprint and also some of my recommendations about organizations or lenders that will work with you to help you build business credit. And I will also give you alternatives to access to capital. So we will learn this over the entire period or spectrum of these business credit. I want to share with you something, the 7th generation principle. And some of you may have heard of it. The 7th generation principle in itself, in a nutshell, it says that the decisions that you make today will impact your future generations, 7 generations into the future. Now that is very profound. Here's the deal, opportunities happen every day, but if we are prepared and we put measures in place, we can impact our future generations. So I want to share with you that oftentimes credit is viewed as negatively. And to be able to scale your business the way that you would like, and also to be able to pass down to future generations, you will have to have access to capital. It's no ifs, ands, or buts around it, unless you're creating a business that is actually just a job. But if you're wanting to scale your business, which is very doable, you have to have access to funds. Here's the deal. As a financial empowerment coach, I am not a strong supporter of people getting in debt. But I do know that you can use it as leverage to be able to access capital and build your business the way that you want and put systems in place. What is business credit? In a nutshell, it's an opportunity for your business to qualify for financing. Creditors and suppliers and other organizations, they will look at your business credit scores and they will just determine whether or not they're going to extend a business line of credit to you, or if they'll approve the business deal. Why is it important? Banks, lenders, and suppliers, they will rely heavily on your business credit reports. They just want to assess the credit worthiness of your company. They will review to see how well you pay, and also the lines of credit that you have, the amounts. But a strong business credit score is going to allow your company to create a safety net for your business and also to be able to gain access to funding. Remember, I shared with you the impact of the pandemic. No one could have ever predicted that, but many of businesses went out of business, but it's because they did not have measures in place. And I think also, just when I meet with clients that are small business owners, when pandemic kind of reveals some holes in our businesses. So this is a way to be able to shore up some things with the steps that I'm going to provide to you. What are the benefits of business credit? First of all, you can keep your personal and your business finances separate. Anytime that you go to a lending institution, if you're trying to access capital, they are going to want to see that, make sure that you're not commingling funds, meaning that there are things in your business that should be in your personal and vice versa. Lending institutions, they look at this, they scrutinize this very carefully. You can also protect your personal credit, because remember, when you're using your business credit, you're not tapping into your personal credit at all. You're not impacting your debt to income ratios or anything. You can preserve your business cash flow. Why is that important? Say, for instance, if you're in a situation where you are needing to, you actually have a company, you have product or service. And in turn, you can use your business credit to place an order for the items that you need for your particular company. That particular company, when you are buying items from that company, in turn, you will have a time frame. They will extend you a line of credit to pay for those items. You can in turn be utilizing or protecting your cash flow so all of your money is not going out of your company. I had a client, I had a client, and he actually, before he came to me, he had government contracts. And as you know, government contracts, they pay. But the problem is that he had to put out so much money on the front end that around the time that he was able to get paid for the government, he had spent out so much money on the front end. So I gave him a strategy about how to build his business credit so he could put charge or actually use his lines of credit to get the things that he needed, whether it was equipment, hiring, or what have you. And as a result, when he received the funds from his client, the government, he was able to pay those things off. Again, protecting his cash flow. You can use credit as leverage. One of the things I share with my clients is that leverage is critical. And let me give you an example. Say, for instance, if you do not have an accounting system in place, but you're needing access to capital. And one of the requirements is that you have your books in order. If you are able to, if you have to spend $2,000 maybe to hire an accountant or a bookkeeper to get things in place, but you spent that money and you were able to get access to 10,000 or 25,000, it's well worth it. So that's what I mean by using credit as leverage. Depending on your business structure, there could be limitations on your liability. And what I mean is that if you have a business and you're a sole proprietor, as a sole proprietor, that business can put you at risk because it's in your name and with your social security number. However, if you have an LLC or a corporation, if anything happens and you're sued, the company is sued and your personal assets are actually protected. In some instances, you can get better terms, rates, credit approvals, and larger lines of credit. So business credit is very important, and you can use it to your advantage. Again, what are some of the differences between personal credit and business credit? They work hand in hand, but they're very different. On the personal side, I'm sure all of you have heard of TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax are credit reporting agencies on the personal side. And in turn, your social security number is used. So anytime you apply for credit and your social security number is used, it will actually report to these. These are the top agencies. There's actually hundreds of credit bureaus, but these are some of the main ones. However, on the business side, you have Equifax and Experian Business, and you also have Dun and Bradstreet. However, your employee ID number is used. So if you open up a business account and you will use your EIN, so you will not see information on your business credit, on your personal credit that's on your business, because again, you're opening up in your business's name. So that's what I mean by you can actually protect your debt to income ratio. So if you were trying to buy a home and you were buying it in your personal, your business information will not appear on your personal and vice versa. Also, you can, with your employee ID number, identification number, you can have, if you have a sole proprietorship, you can use the same EIN for those different businesses. However, if you have multiple businesses, and you have an LLC, you can have an EIN for each and every one. Now let's put that in perspective. Again, going back to the pandemic, if you were eligible for any of those funds, you would have been able to possibly get funding for each and every one of those businesses. I will say this, each agency reports differently for personal and business. FICO is used by 90% of the industry on the personal side, with their highest score being about 850. Whereas on the business side, you have, again, Equifax, Experian, you have and Dun & Bradstreet. And on the business side, they look at different things. They look at your business credit scores, reporting. They may also be able to pull up to see if you've had like any bankruptcies or things like that. So what happens on the business credit side, business credit and personal credit is regulated. What do I mean by that? As when you have personal credit, it's actually laws out there that protect you as the consumer. So say, for instance, if some information is reporting erroneously on your personal credit report, you can dispute it and you're protected by the Fair Credit Reporting Act. However, on the business side, that's totally different. There's no regulations in place. So something that I will recommend, and this is just something that I want to suggest to you, if any of you are thinking about going into a partnership with another business, you can actually request their business credit report. On the personal side, that is not the case. So again, that's a strategy that you can use before you make a decision, because the banks and lending institutions, they're doing the same for you as it relates to business credit. I want to ask you, what is your game plan? If you needed to expand right now, are any of you prepared? Do you have access to funds? What if you need equipment or additional staff? If you need a larger work facility? What if an employee or your partner becomes ill? Are you in a position to be able to buy them out? These are things that we really need to think about, because again, it's always best to be ready so you don't have to get ready. Building business credit is a strategy. It requires patience and it's a process. And what happens is that there's a lot of information out here on YouTube as well as TikTok, and the information is not necessarily accurate. They're giving you bits and pieces of what actually steps that you should put in place to actually build your business credit score. And so we will actually challenge or talk about some of those things. Again, here's the blueprint. And all of this information, not only can you have access to the slide deck, but I have a checklist. And these are the things that you need to do before you start applying for business credit. 1, select your business name and address. Make sure that it's legally available. Check your social media, Google domain. You want to avoid any legal challenges. And let me explain why. What has happened is I have my social media manager for another one of my businesses. She was working with a gentleman and he had created his logo. She had created all of these marketing materials and he did not do his due diligence. What happened is that another company had the same name, business and domain and everything. And he had spent thousands and thousands of dollars. And guess what? Because he didn't do his due diligence, he had to change all of that information. Also, do any of you have home-based businesses? Well, if you do have home-based businesses, I would suggest that you actually get a virtual office. The reason being is that, again, these lending institutions that you are creditors that you're trying to build business credit, they check this information. So you can actually get a virtual office or virtual mailing address, and you could use a Regis or post-scan mail is very inexpensive. They have a $15 all on the way up to $30 product. Why is this important? Because you will actually have a actual mailing address. And if you want, anything can be faxed there or mailed there. They can scan it to you, destroy the information, and they can scan it to you. This is very important because, again, when the lenders are checking your information and you're trying to apply for business credit, they can check to see if this is a home address. Now, does that mean that you're going to be denied business credit? No, not necessarily. But I always suggest is that put the best foot forward, dot all the I's and cross all of the T's, and to increase your chances of actually being receiving credit. Secure a business phone number. I always like to give you options where you can either use things for free or at a very nominal fee. These are some some resources that you can use. Register your business. This is so important. If you incorporate, that's going to be a part of the process. However, if you're a sole proprietor, you're going to need to use your DBA. You're going to use, it's called a doing business as. So that allows you that you do not have to put your name, your business in your name. You can put it in a fictitious name or a name of your choosing. All legal entities are required to have a registered agent. All that means is that a person or agency is a person or agency that can receive legal notices on your behalf. And again, if you are if you're incorporated and then you have an actual address, this is part of the process. Create a business entity. There is a huge push that I've been seeing on Facebook and a lot of on social media platforms of people getting an LLC. But the problem the challenge that I have with that is that you have to make sure what structure works best for you and at what time. Let me explain. I had someone that they were given advice to set up a corporation. Nothing wrong with that. However, their particular company was not making a lot of money. They set up that corporation prior to the pandemic, and in turn, once they set it up and then the following year came, there was a lot of different taxes and fees that had to be paid, paperwork that had to be filed, and because they did not get good advice, they were not able to access these funds that the rich, and oftentimes was free money. So it's always good to get good advice. And one thing that I suggest, and this is not my lane, but what I suggest to people is that look at the liability in your business. If there's a high risk, then yes, you may want to go the LLC route. But if not, you may want to consider starting out as a sole proprietor. And then once you build your business, you can move on to a corporation or a corporation or what have you. Make sure that your taxes, fees are paid, and reports are filed. Because what happens is that, like in her situation, reports and things like that weren't filed. So if she tried to apply for business credit, there's a strong possibility that she would have been denied. So it's little things like this that may seem not important, but they can trip us up. I want to talk to you a little bit about the different types of business structures. And again, you can decide what works best for you. And I'm sure the team, if you needed more details about this, they probably have access to someone that could really help you through this process. A sole proprietorship, it gives you complete control of your business. Your assets and liabilities are not separate from your personal. Remember, this is a situation under a sole proprietorship that if something happens, you can be sued because you and the business in essence are one, because again, you're using your social security number. But on the other hand, it might be a great start for new businesses. If you're wanting to kind of test the waters before you become more formal. And just as I said before, if you're in an industry that may not have a lot of liability. I've seen several people that start off in this space, and some even remain, and that's perfectly okay. An LLC, or limited liability corporation, you're going to protect your personal assets. And also you may want to consider this once your business becomes more established. And if you're incurring a lot of business expenses or if there's a high risk of liability, because you always want to protect yourself at all costs. Partnership. This is one of the easiest structure on my, I have a business called Hustle to Business University, and we actually help small business owners, give them resources and tools to take their business from hustles to actual legitimate businesses. This is probably one of the easiest structures if you're going, and we have a partnership. Then there's limited partnerships and limited liability partnerships. Then you have a corporation. It's completely separate from the owners. What I love about this business structure is that you can pay yourself and it will impact your taxes and so on. So this is just some information on different business structures and just a high level. Steps to build your business credit. Request an employee ID number. An employee ID number, again, is free and it's through the IRS. This is a link here. You click on the link and then you can get your employee ID number. Employee ID number is very important because if you are applying not only for a business credit, some government contracts, they want you to have your employee ID number and also some and grants. So if you are going to, or you're online, and if someone is asking you to pay for an EIN, that is not a legitimate, that is not legitimate. And the EIN is connected to the IRS. Make sure that you get any type of licenses and or permits. That's going to be very important. Sales tax, business license. If you're doing anything with food, there's certain type of permits that you will need, and you would have to go to your state to find out what is needed for you, for your particular business. I put in Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC. If you click on this link here, and I'm going to tell you why I think that's important. If you click on this link here, it will actually take you to their site. And what happens is that you can put in your state and it will tell you who the person is for your particular state. I love PTAC because they help, this is a free service, and they can help you to get certified to work with the government. The government buys everything. And again, they can walk you through that process. Open a business bank account. This here is very important. I'm working with a bank now, and they are requiring that they work with a bank now, and they have funds, grants, as well as loans that they will be able to distribute in the community to underrepresented communities. However, that's one of the requirements, a business bank account. This is so important and yet so simple. Again, I shared with you earlier that banks do not want you to commingle funds. They need for the personal and the business to be kept separate, because when they are trying to extend business credit to you, they don't want to have to sort through what is personal and what is business. And if you get audited by the IRS, that can be an issue as well. Banks will require your employee ID number, if you have an LLC, and articles of organization, and a business license. So these are some things that you will need before you actually go and apply for you're trying to open up your business bank account. And your DUNS number. DUNS number, it identifies your business in Dun & Bradstreet as a commercial credit database. Dun & Bradstreet has been in business over 170 years, and they collect data. DUNS number at this moment is free. And again, you will need this number to conduct business with the government. So again, this is a free number. Go ahead and get it, because I've seen just in different situations, like depending on what contracts that you're applying for, or some grants, they ask for this information. So again, just as I shared before, be ready so you don't have to get ready. Set up your books. When I initially started my business several years ago, I was trying to do everything in an Excel spreadsheet. Now, I thought I was doing a really good job, but it was very hard to keep track of all of the different things that I had because had book sales, I had different applications that I was using, PayPal, Venmo, just different things. And it was just very hard to try to keep track of. So I definitely encourage you to set up your books, even if you have to hire a bookkeeper or an accountant initially, which is what I did. I hired an accountant and I had her to put a system in place for me and to train me. I do the reconciling every month and then I meet with my accountant every quarter. And I shared with you, this is so important. And I shared with you earlier how getting your book set up, how that's going to be very important when you start applying for different types of credit or lines of credit. Create a website. Website is great for first impressions and it's important for marketing. And remember, all of these things are put in place to help you to increase your chances of being approved for business lines of credit. You can use Wix, GoDaddy, and I've even recommended Fiverr. There's some great resources on Fiverr. Fiverr is, and that's spelled correctly with 2 R's, is not expensive. You can have a website created. Do you necessarily need a website? No, but think about it from this standpoint. When you are researching a product or a service, what's the first thing that you do? You go online and research it, especially if it's not local. So someone else would do the same thing. So put yourself in the customer's shoes. This is something that may be skipped over. Register with online services. This adds another level of legitimacy to your business. Google, Yelp. So list your business with a 411 directory and on social media accounts. This is very important because, again, this is something that they will look for. Next, you will begin to establish business credit. You can buy some items in your business name. Vendors have different terms. Something that you may purchase might be 15 days, 30 days, 60 or 90. All that means is that you have to pay. If you charge some items, you have to pay it. You have to pay them within 15, 30, 60, 90 days. And that particular vendor will actually give you the terms. And then you have to monitor your accounts. Just so you know, you will have a checklist with all these different things to help you establish business credit before, this is the pre-work, before you actually started trying to apply and open up accounts. Does anyone have any questions about this segment of the webinar? Or has anyone tried to apply for business credit?
It looks like we have a couple of hands up saying they have tried to apply for business credit.
Can they come off mute and tell me their experience? Have they been approved, or were they not approved? Did they have any challenges?
I have a question. What are articles of organization?
It's the paperwork that is filed for your LLC.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
so
you.
you'll receive that once you get, and then it's the paperwork that's filed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that I say that these things need to take place because You don't want to put, I had someone call me and they applied for business credit and they were denied. So I actually sent them the checklist and I said, review this checklist and let me know, did you do everything on this checklist? And several things were missing and they did not. And that's probably why they were denied.
So I have heard, as far as a business line of credit goes, let's say that you have done everything that's checked off on the checklist. Does it then take, which is just something I heard, I'm not sure, does it then take like 2 years to be able to establish that credit? Or are you able to use it pretty immediately?
Not at all. And that's what I want to go into on the second piece of the webinar. Here's the
Yes, ma'am.
deal. There are net vendors. You have, and they're tier 1, tier 2, they're in tiers. But the tier 1 vendors, what I love about them is that they know that you do not have business credit. So you can start working with them immediately. Some of them only require that you to be in business for, a few months or what have you, and they know your circumstances. And there are places, they're called like Uline. These are the equivalent of your Office Max or different type of stores like that. And they will give you business credit immediately if you have these things in place. No, it does not take 2 years, okay? But you have to be very strategic when you're trying to build business credit. There's actually 2 pathways to building business credit. If you have a 680 credit score or better, you can go to several lending institutions and get a business credit card and or a business line of credit.
Yes, ma'am.
And some even, I'm sorry.
I just said yes, ma'am. I'm just listening.
Absolutely. So you can actually, and then if you have poor credit, that's when we really have to go through all of these steps to go through the tiers. So back to what I was saying before, I mentioned that TikTok University and Facebook University and all these, they're giving you a lot of information. You have social media, people on social media, and this is not a slight against them or anything. I'm just being very frank with you. What's happening is that you can go out on YouTube right now and they'll have all type of videos that says, hey, you can actually get a business line of credit with poor personal credit. They're absolutely right. But what they're not telling you is that you're limited to the types of accounts that you can receive. What do I mean by that? You can only get non-cash accounts, meaning that if you have a business line of credit, you can only use it at that organization. Now, that might be okay on the front end, but what about if you need to hire more employees? You can't pay them with through an Office Max card. You can buy products through that, but you can't. That's not really helping you in terms of depending on what your long-term goal is. So I will suggest that if anyone has challenged credit, it's nothing to be embarrassed about or anything like that, because I had challenged credit years ago, but I realized that it was limiting me in terms of what I was able to have access to. And I'm telling you, if you have challenged credit, you're trying to build business credit, or you're wanting to access the larger lines of credit and business credit cards, you are going to have to work on your personal credit. There's no way around it, because guess what? Lenders think that, okay, if you can't balance your personal finances, or however you balance or you move in your personal finances, you're going to do the exact same thing in your business. So what are your long-term goals? Are you trying to expand your business, or what specifically you're trying to do?
If you're talking to me, if you're speaking with me, I'm looking to start a business. So I'm not looking to, so I do a little training right now, and I'm thinking about possibly taking that training to the next level. When I say training, I do like basketball training for 6th to 9th graders.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's just a small thing right now, but I'm getting more and more people asking me and looking for that help.
Okay.
And so I'm just looking for next steps. I could use, more equipment and those kind of things. And so right now I don't have any business, but that is a goal.
And that's perfect. So here's the deal. I always tell folks, go ahead and do these things on the front end, especially with the accounting piece, because you'd rather have systems in place. So if you hit a growth spurt, guess what? You've already did the work.
Yes, ma'am.
You've already did the work.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have any questions or any other questions or about their business or that apply for business credit?
I'm not seeing any in the chat.
Okay. One more thing before, so again, remember I shared that the it's two-part series. These are the top major business credit these are the top organizations that has business credit. You have Dun & Bradstreet has a Paydex score, Experian, Equifax, and FICO. So this is where you look at the side of the green. This is where you need to be with Dun & Bradstreet. 80s, Experian, Equifax. This is where you need to be. And what happens is that when you are opening up these accounts, when you start buying items and they start reporting, they're going to report to these credit bureaus. And that's how you build business credit. And based on what your score is, that's how you will know. And I'll give you a plan of action when we meet again that will tell you when you can move on to the next tier to start getting gas cards. You can get anything in your business name. It must be justifiable. You may need a vehicle. If you're in construction, you may need a vehicle. Why not buy it in your business name? That particular vehicle. So it's different things that you can do that can help you. So very quickly, does anyone have any questions? I want to make sure that I answer any of your questions. And I know this is not pretty or it's not sexy as it relates to the things that you need to have to get in order, but these are things that are musts. They have to be done if you're trying to establish business credit. These are the foundational things. And so the second phase of the webinar, we will actually go into specific details about the things about the companies that you can apply to, what is the process, how it looks, the time frame, and you will have a plan of action so you can start building business credit. And after you do these things that I just went over today, you can move forward and you can start applying for business credit, even if you have not been in business for a long period of time. Does anyone else have any questions?
I don't see any.
Mandy, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but this is really good information. And I think I can see how this really could be beneficial to anyone who's looking to start a new business.
You're absolutely right. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say thank you for all the information that you've provided for me. It's been very informative and I've learned a lot, and I'm excited for the next one.
Absolutely. And again, please accept my sincerest apologies about earlier, but I do want to say that the checklist that I'm going to send, Mandy, is not just for business credit. It's for anyone can use that's trying to establish a legitimate business. And you don't have to worry about trying to digest all this information. The checklist will just allow you to just check things off as you get them done. but please set aside time for this, because there's going to be a lot of funds that are there will be a lot of funds that are given to certain populations, and you want to be in a position where you can receive that funding. And
All right.
I don't have any other questions.
Not seeing any. So I would just like to remind everyone, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Coach Starnes, for the information, and we're really excited to have you back next week. Just as a reminder, we are going to have Building Business Credit Part 2 next Thursday, April 21st at 2 p.m. And we're going to finish this conversation then. So I'd like to ask everyone to please complete the brief evaluation form that we're going to send. These help us to improve our webinar services. And we've put chat links in the chat with some of the information that was provided today as well. And so we will see everyone next Thursday, hopefully. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.